In your vampire books, I picked up a real sense that the immortals yearn to be mortal, and vice versa. Does that ambivalence say anything about your own life?
Oh, I think it goes on in all of us. I think there's that struggle. There are moments when we are immortal, and there are other moments when we are very conscious of the fact that we are going to die, and we are shaken to the root, and we are very, very mortal. But we go back and forth, and we respond to immortals in our literature because there is one part of us that is from time to time powerfully immortal. You know, when we are listening to great music, when we're working very hard on a project, when everything is going well, when we're in love, we're really at that point, we forget that we are getting old, that we are going to die. You know, so to me, that's why supernatural literature works so strongly for us. It's really about us. It's about our conflicts, about our divisions, and so forth. With me, there's always been these two voices. One that says, you should sell everything you possess and you should go to Somalia now, and you should take care of the people there. And if you save human life there, that is the most important thing in the world. Then there's another part that says, you can't possibly save all the people starving in the world, but you can write books, unique books. Stay right here and write your books. That's the greatest way you can spite death or spite time. And that dialogue, it never leaves me at peace. And it's in The Tale of the Body Thief, of course. It's between Gretchen and Lestat, that very argument. I'm very, very conscious of it. The Daily News makes me conscious of it.
You know, if Anne and Clive collaborated, they could produce The Tale of the Body Thief of Always. Just a thought. Immortality and vampires also come together in Brian Stableford's latest novel, Young Blood. Brian also explored immortality through metaphysics in The Walking Shadow and through genetics in his short story, The Magic Bullet. You seem to be intrigued by the concept of immortality. I mean, it's cropped up in a number of your books and stories.
Yes, it is something with which I've been perpetually fascinated, partly in terms of what I see as the spectrum of real scientific possibility facing us over the next few hundred years. I think that as the biology of aging is more and more understood, then our ability to cope with it is bound to increase, and that I would think there's a very real prospect in the not too distant future of us achieving extreme longevity. And having taught sociology for many years, trying to estimate the impact of a technology of longevity on society is, I think, a much more vexing problem than it has sometimes seemed to the people who've written about it. And the other thing is that my historical studies on science fiction reveal to me how astonishingly negative the literary image of immortality is. That there are countless stories written about it which suggest that it would be a thoroughly bad thing. And indeed, this seems to affect even people's real-world thinking about it. I've been on radio shows where I've sat with people who have quite happily declared that they would absolutely hate to live longer than their allotted span. And assuming that they were sincere, this seems to me to be a ridiculous way to think. I think that immortality is something that one should welcome and be prepared for. I'd certainly be prepared to try if anyone were to give me the chance. The prospect of getting bored in 300 years might be there, but I'd take the risk.
One possible approach to extending lifespans that we haven't discussed yet is cryonic suspension, the deep freeze, the corpsicle. It's what was used to preserve the astronauts in Planet of the Apes and 2001: A Space Odyssey. James White explored the effects of icing people in The Dream Millennium and freezing aliens in The Watch Below. But lately, authors have cooled on cryonics because of the technological challenges, such as avoiding freezer burn. Oh, right, Nancy, give me a line to his home in California. When I was talking to author David Brin a while back, he mentioned that Greg Benford was thinking of having himself frozen. What? Oh, no, God. Check his freezer. Oh, shoo, oh, that's right. He teaches at the University of California. Oh, Greg, I understand that like your character Henry Fielding in Doing Lennon, you're interested in having yourself frozen. What is the current state of that technology?
Well, I became interested in this simply because I did not know there was an earnest, organized, incorporated effort, in fact 3 corporations, to cryonically suspend people, as they put it, for long times. So I studied it because I had always thought it was just a science fictional idea, and nobody was going to do it. So my current assessment is that people in this area are doing the best they can to minimize the damage, but we're increasingly aware that there's a lot of damage when you freeze the brain, say. And recovering just the information alone, which is the starting point for recovering of the personality, looks difficult but not impossible. However, I really believe from my reading of the research that's been done that just a bit more research, a few more years, probably 5 and a few $100,000 of research, will show us some techniques for protecting, particularly brain matter, against extensive damage.
As I understand it, there have only been about 30 people frozen so far.
I think as the realization dawns that this is an actual, though low probability, possibility, many more people will sign up. I suspect that within a few decades you will see thousands of people frozen every year. Because after all, what is the downside? You're just out a bit of money at death, which you can cover with an insurance policy. So in the sense of a rational bet, it's one with a very small ante.
How do you decide when to have yourself put on ice? Or can the process wait until after your natural death?
Well, assuming that you're going to die of some ordinary thing that doesn't affect your brain, then probably there's no point in being frozen before you die. Because the instant you die, at the moment, bang, they revive your heart and lungs and use the circulatory system of the body to perfuse the brain with chemicals that minimize the freezing damage. So there's really not a lot of difference between the 5 minutes before you die and the 5 minutes after you die. They will simply make the machinery run through artificial means. If you, however, have, say, a brain tumor, which is going to erase your personality, as does Thomas Donaldson at the moment, the man who has sued for the right to freeze himself alive, so-called, and lost, then he's got a real agenda, because he will vanish as a person before his body dies. Therefore, at the simple level of humanity, whether or not you think this program can succeed, Donaldson is going to starve himself to death before his personality vanishes. A harsh death imposed purely by a law that sees no distinction to be made here. And I think on a moral level, society should not have the right to essentially force Donaldson to that choice.
So obviously this technology is going to affect human morality, isn't it?
There's a good argument that if you truly believe you will have a chance at another life sometime in the future, not strict immortality, which after all has to be forever, and accidents always happen, then it may at the least make you think long term. One of the problems about the human race is that we are exhausting resources and polluting our environment on a scale that's roughly the human lifespan. If you give people the prospect of a much larger lifespan, they might think more reasonably about the fact that they may have to live in all this waste. At least it could encourage that kind of behavior in the present, and therefore yield a real benefit immediately in the behavior of people.
Interesting theory. Thanks, Greg. While we wait for science to deliver immortality through freezing, or better yet, some instant elixir, there are methods available here and now to anyone who wants to live beyond their own lifespan. You can create great art, produce a family, or do good deeds. Of course, those pathways to immortality take a whole lifetime. Next week on Second Nature, searching for the fountain of youth. Genetic engineers say that if they can shut off the genetic triggers that cause cells to physically age, you may be able to retain your youthful looks well into your coffin.